also be utilized.
We've been able to generate colors onto a white piece of paper, a gray piece of paper, or even a black wall. There's really no reason why we keep total saturation of just pure colors, straight colors. We can start to produce configuration shapes, transfer multiple colors together, color bands, rainbow effects. But in order to do this, we have to identify, almost like when we project slides, we have to produce a projector of some device. So to project light strobe through the color gels, we've had to come up with a projection box. We built our projection box out of foam board. It's actually stolen from the old cinematography days of, this is called a cookie or a Coca-Loris. And it's made out of foam board. It's got tough frost on one end, and it has the ability to control the transfers of colors onto backgrounds. And the controls that you're going to run into anytime you cut a gel with configurations as we have here, and then we have the ability to attach these to color gels, whether it be red, blue, or any of the colors that we choose. We attach them with Velcro onto a preset frame, and then cut in the openings, in this case round holes, onto it, and then attach it to the front. Now, this particular projection box we went pure saturation and project the actual forms that we cut into the gels has been painted black inside. It's very important that you paint it black to where when the strobe fires through, it doesn't just totally flood it because it's painted white. It doesn't flood it with light and then totally diffuse the color out. What you want to do is keep the total projection concepts going through optical control, so you paint it black to where you have just a projection shape instead of a reflection shape. Now, the controls you're going to work with is, once you put the gels on, the distance of the gel to the wall. The farther you get from the wall, the more the shapes and patterns you've cut into your gels blend over a larger area. You can actually see that when you project a light past your shadow onto a wall. As you get further away from the wall, your actually edge of your shadow becomes softer and softer. So that distance is very important. Once the gel's on front, the distance of the gel to the strobe head. We've been able to control that by the ability to telescope this back and forth. And as you get it closer, the actual source of illumination gets bigger relative to the gel or the openings. As you get it further away, the source becomes smaller relative to it. So you're actually controlling the size of the source relative to the distance of the obstruction onto the wall. So this telescoping is a very important factor because you may not have a lot of control of the gel to the wall depending on your particular confines. Now, controlling the size of this actual opening. Now, this one right here is designed for our reflectors of our bronze colors, and it's going to be connected to our bronze quickly with an actual bungee strap that goes around and holds it to it. We say that if there's a tremendous amount of power out of the strobe head, at least it recoils and it pulls it back so it doesn't fall out. But the ability to hold it into place and be able to attach it very quickly is what we're desiring there. But to control the size of this, now we don't have lots of different reflectors that we can attach, so we use the same reflectors, and then we have aperture cards of small openings. Now, this particular aperture card, a round one, is just really to do nothing more than to change the size and shape of the configuration. A top line is drawing, saying that that's going to be the top of it. You drop it in, and basically, as you can see here, by dropping it in, you have this size opening, but when you drop it in, now the strobe mouth is this size. Okay, which is reduced the size, going to project a much tighter pattern, a much more identified pattern that you've cut into it. Any shape you've cut into the gels is going to be much more in focus because the source is smaller. Now, by taking any of these systems and attaching them onto your strobe head, dropping them down below underneath your subject, and as we did in this particular shot, to where the young lady was on a door, she was propped, she was up high, we could put the strobe below. If we were doing a 3/4 length or almost full length, this box could be put onto a boom above the head, firing to the background, so you're not really confined to always put it in a stand underneath the subject. But with this into place, we now have the ability to control our actual patterns. Now, with the red gel into place, with the one small opening, you get what we'll say is almost a polka dot feeling. It's really mimicking or producing an exact outline of our actual apertures. Now, we don't cut squares or any other shapes in the gels. We always stay with a round opening, then we change the shapes of the openings by the aperture cards. For instance, if we wish to go with a diagonal shape, we'll pull this one out, and then we've then be able to cut a diagonal shape which has, if you take a look, the exact same opening size between the two. Now, this happens to be round and this is diagonal, but the area, the actual square inches within the area are the same size, so when we quickly pull one out and drop this one in, we don't have to change the power. The power is the same amount because it's the same area, the same color. Now, we now have the ability to take and transfer those polka dots into these particular shapes because of a theory of circles of confusion, which we have vertical and horizontal diffusion. Now you see this anytime you look through your camera and focus on something and things are out of focus in the small round circle of confusion. If you put an obstruction in front of your camera, you'll see lines, or if you put a pencil in front of your camera, you'll see an actual streak through it. So this is really what we're doing, is we're running with optical law to where we have vertical, horizontal diffusion of those round openings in the front. If I wish to now double each one of the holes that I have in the front gel, I'll pull this one out, and the same calculations before, I've been able to cut two diagonals, keeping the same aperture area in it, then dropping that in there. Each one of the round openings in the front will now become 2 because you have 2 obstructions here, and the actual will then double. Same thing, if I put 3 cuts into this board, I'll then have 3 actual diagonals from each opening in the colored gel. Now that's just one effect you can do just with a primary color. Let's say you want to do a multicolor, a color blend, or a rainbow effect. Well, you have control of the rainbow effect too. By working with these, we can then putting and mounting up colored gels on these pre-made Velcroed stands, right, as you can see that's going to attach to the front. We can then put a series of primary color gels, any colors you want, to where now these combinations may be what we want. By putting it onto the front of the box, tip it into any angle we want, we can produce different shade configurations. But to control the tension of the color between them, to blend these colors into each other, are going to be totally controlled by the aperture opening. If I then put these gels on the front, then taking and putting into it either this one or the actual horizontal, if I drop this particular aperture card into this slot place, the diffusion now becomes very, very tight top to bottom, to where the colors do not blend together, because now from top to bottom you have a very small source of illumination, and it will diffuse the colors in a minor mode. Horizontally, it'll diffuse it quite a bit, but you're not going to see the actual horizontal diffusion in this particular shot. Now, if I wish to quickly blend the colors together, I'll take this aperture card out and replace it now with one that has a vertical diffusion. The horizontal is very tight. Okay, to where dropping this in now, the colors then, top to bottom, will start to blend together, because the diffusion now, top to bottom, starts to blend the colors together. So I quickly changing these back and forth, I can quickly make the colors transfer together evenly, or if I wanted a very tight color bands, I'll replace it with the actual horizontal diffusion. That'll be the control systems that I'll come up with. So with a little bit of foam board, white background paper, gray background paper, the ability to utilize your meters just to the concise control of a third of a stop, you can then come up with any color, any shade of color, any pastel, any configuration, whether it be color bands put together, whether it be polka dots put together, whatever you want. The only thing that's going to hold you back is your imagination. So it's a little bit of inexpensive equipment put together with just quite a bit of knowledge and understanding of photoscience, optical science, and lighting process. And photographically, there's really nothing you can't create within the confines of a studio or even in a location.